Welcome to the best and hardest Alphabet Platinum Challenge you will find on YouTube, a scroll in a cave spoken into existence. For those of you that don't know, we are picking a game that starts with each letter of the alphabet starting from Z, going all the way up, and platinuming / getting to 100% on each of them. So far, we've done Zombie Army 4, Ys 8, XCOM 2, Wolfenstein 2, Visage, Undertale, Evil Within, Sifu, and Resident Evil 2. Have some pretty rough games to do still, including Outlast 2, Hollow Knight, Fortnite, Black Ops 3, Back 4 Blood, among many others coming up later in the challenge. For our Q game, I went with Quake 2, which I'm pretty sure came out at the same time they were learning how to make round stones to use as wheels. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming videos. Let's very quickly go over the steps for this playthrough. Step 1. Go through and beat every level. That's it. Those are all the steps. I finally have a nice, straightforward game. Let's go. The story follows our main protagonist, Bitterman, who is a badass marine who is sent to infiltrate and destroy a Strogue base that is located on one of the Strogue's moons because the aliens are getting ready to attack the humans. For those of you who have never played this game, the combat and movements are very similar to Doom, along with its difficulty at times. We begin getting ready for landing on this alien planet, but realized that we cheaped out and hired Delta pilots for our mission. Things go horribly wrong before we even land, and we end up losing almost all of the other troops. Now it is basically us against an entire alien race. Of course it is. Our first objective is to locate the communication center. That sounds simple enough. Figuring out and getting used to the mechanics of this game, not so much. The aiming and shooting feel so weird compared to modern FPS games. Felt like a newborn giraffe trying to walk around. I eventually did learn how to walk and beginning making my way through the level with a little pistol that does next to no damage. This level contains pretty easy enemies to deal with, and it is relatively linear. I'm slowly becoming more comfortable with the shooting and how to strafe around while shooting to avoid getting hit. Because the enemies do a lot of damage to you in this game. The main objectives for this level are to obtain a blue key card in order to re-enter the installation from a different direction. Upon establishing communication link to the command ship, I finished the first level and got my first trophy, locking me into this game. I arrived to the second unit, which is a station area. Our main objective is to destroy the Strogue logistic train, which transports many military supplies such as weapons and ammo. It is going to be very important to destroy this to slow them down. This is still early in the game, so many of the enemies aren't too difficult to deal with. And I'm also quickly getting better weapons to use for the game. For how old this game is, it does have some pretty solid puzzle and parkour mechanics. The majority of them are pretty fun and not too frustrating. After making our way through the ammo depot and the supply station, I finally got to the third part of this level, the warehouse. After showing these aliens what it means to be an American, I finally got to the end of the level and got a trophy for destroying the Strogue logistic train and restoring power to key warehouse components. Our next major objective is to destroy the security grid protecting the industrial region. This level required a lot of backtracking and trying to figure out where exactly to go. I first have to find a red key, which is used to deactivate lasers. I then have to go to the guardhouse where I'm able to pick up a pyramid key, and then the torture chambers to pick up a security pass. Pretty much a Sunday afternoon stroll to get groceries. This level does, however, give us the grenade launcher for the first time, which is huge later in the game. A lot of the guns I have now are like airsoft guns. The grenade launcher is like bringing a molten hot knife to a butter fight. These early levels provided very little resistance in my platinum journey. I quickly got through this and got a trophy for entering the security pyramid and destroying the security grid protecting the industrial region. Our next objective is to navigate the mines to find a service entrance to the factory. This level is pretty linear with not much going on. I do, however, get the rocket launcher. Remember the butter fight I mentioned earlier? Well, this is like bringing a nuke to that fight. Turns me into an absolute shit brick house. This level ended up being pretty quick, and upon finishing it, I got a trophy for navigating the mines to find a service entrance to the factory. The next objective is to shut down all machines in the Stroke processing plant. So this is going to be a pretty good place to shut down. So the aliens are kinda, sorta ginormous assholes, and the whole point of this place is to, and this is a direct quote from the wiki page, quote, "This is a gruesome facility filled with large machines whose purpose is to dismember, crush, grind, melt, liquefy, or otherwise process captive humans." End quote. Yikes. So yeah, let's shut this bitch down like the cops shutting down a party in the suburbs. There are 7 machines to shut down, no new enemy types, and an angry man with a lot of guns. This map is pretty basic. It's pretty much a big circle, and you just go around taking a pit stop at each machine to turn it off. After completing this, I got a trophy for shutting down all machines in the Stroke processing plant. Let's move on to something a little less disturbing, shall we? Our next objective is to infiltrate and destroy Stroke main reactor. This reactor is important because it provides energy for the majority of the facilities that are located in the capital, Cerberon. And of course, the reactor is invincible to weapons. So we have to turn off the coolant, which will then cause it to overheat, and then have to disable toxic waste disposal system, which leads to toxic corrosive waste to come and destroy it. I first have to go diddle a super tank in order to obtain a red key. I make my way a little further until I get a data CD and move on to exposing the reactor core. After doing this and playing hide and seek with some enemies, I move on to the cooling facility. From here, we are able to drain all the coolant away and achieve our first objective. I now have to make my way to the toxic waste dump area. After going through these areas multiple times and backtracking, finally make it back to the reactor right in time for it to explode, popping a trophy for infiltrating and destroying the Stroke main reactor. And I move on to the next objective, which is to find and destroy the Stroke's planetary defense system, the Big Gun. The Big Gun is able to fire off EMP blasts and disable or destroy any type of spaceship. Unfortunately for the humans, that included the little space pods that we were coming in on at the beginning of the game. The Big Gun is the reason all the other pods were destroyed and we are fighting a war by ourselves. It is time for us to get payback. The biggest resistance we are going to encounter during this comes in the form of a Hornet. This is the main boss of this section, and Shipbird is equipped with twin chain guns and an RPG that shoots 4 rockets at once. Honestly, this thing isn't awful, and I kind of sugar-beared it. There's a little part of this after the fight where I have to take out some more enemies, and I get to the defense monitor screens. Next came a self-destruct sequence where I had to haul ass out of there, running like a little girl, and get to the shuttle and get up out of there, getting a trophy for finding and destroying the Strobe's planetary defense system, the Big Gun. Our next objective becomes closing the main hangar bay door and destroying the black hole generator. This garbage allows the ball bags to travel to other planets. Going through the level, I came across a door with a barrier blocking it, and when I clicked on the button, all it gave me was a "You need the commander's head" message. I have to go to the research room to get it. I make my way over there, pick up the head, come back, ready to open the door. After dealing with some pretty easy enemies here, I can now go to the inner hangar. Some more bum men pop up that we have to deal with. After dealing with that, I progress a little further and come face to face with another Hornet. Much like the first one, guy was a pushover, and I smacked him around. After giving the Hornet a shellacking, I went and found a level that closed the hangar doors. Now on to destroying the black hole generator. I had to deactivate some side chambers, turn some wheel valves, which disrupts the core CPU. I can shoot some computers, and finally destroyed the black hole generator, getting a trophy for closing the hangar door and destroying the generator. Our next objective is to neutralize Strogue Leader's communication system. In order to do this, I'm going to have to find the data communications laser CD to then reprogram the data spinner, which will then neutralize the communication system. This level is kind of confusing because there's optional objectives and a lot of backtracking, but ultimately, the enemies aren't that hard, and after doing these small objectives, come to another tank, I flip like a turtle, and make my way to the inner chamber to fight the creator, the Macron. This fight isn't particularly difficult, even though I had some deaths that looked like this. But eventually, I beat the metal duck and saved humanity like the true hero I am. After all of this, I finally got my trophy for neutralizing the Strogue's leader's communication systems. There are basically DLC levels after this that are included, and you also need to get them for the platinum, so we also have to go through those. I'm not gonna lie, guys, got a little bored of the game at this point. There's a pretty great exploit, I guess, where you can skip to the last section of each level. I didn't use that at all up to this point, but these levels I just couldn't be bothered going through because each one is significantly longer than the base game. Like, base game levels are maybe 1 to 2 hours. These go anywhere from like 5 to 7 hours of the same repetitive gameplay. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So, I skipped to the last part of each level. The first level I had to go through was Call of the Machine. Objective: collect all 6 data disks and defeat the Strobe creator. So, I don't really know the story during these, but I started at the end of the level and basically had to go through a nightmare of multiple bosses with maybe a million normal enemies spawning in. I don't know how all of this happened at all, but here are some of the highlights to the fight. I eventually beat them all and beat the level, getting my trophy for collecting all 6 data disks and defeating the Stroke creator. The next level was the Reckoning, with my objective to infiltrate the moon base and destroy the fleet. And this is the level that drove me insane. There are so many enemies, and they're all strong and bullet sponges, and to top it off is an obnoxious as all hell boss fight I had to deal with. Just look at what I was dealing with here. Eventually, many, many tries later, finally beat this level and got my trophy for infiltrating the Strogue moonbase and destroying the fleet. 2 more levels left. The next one was Ground Zero. Objective: find and eliminate the Strogue's great weapon, the gravity well. And guess what? It's another horrific boss fight. Like, bad, bad. Like, never ending spawning spiders that take a lot of damage, a tanky boss that has heat seeking missiles. It blows. And I died a lot. I'll just give you some of the lowlights to this fight. But finally, this garbage was over and gave me my trophy for finding and eliminating the Strogue's great weapon, the gravity well. Finally, on to the last level, Quake 2 64. Objective: enter an alternate timeline and destroy the Guardians. This level was mostly figuring out the vertical maze, getting out in the middle of a messy machine non-consensual sandwich where I died a lot, as these 2 big men coming from the left and right and had to destroy one as fast as humanly possible. Once one was gone, the other one fell pretty easily, and after that, it was a nice easy run to the end of the level, which gave me my trophy for entering the alternate timeline and destroying the Guardians, And after that, the sweet, sweet platinum finally popped, officially ending my Q game. Onto the rankings. So there's a lot of exploits for this game that you could utilize to make it easier and much shorter. I played the game on medium, so it could be dropped to easy to make this score even lower. For difficulty, I'm giving this game a 4.5 out of 10. Once you get used to the combat, it's pretty easy outside of the couple boss fights at the end. And also, there's a quick save feature, so you could save midway through a boss fight if you wanted to. For grind, I'm giving this game a 4 out of 10. It just felt very repetitive, and if you don't do the level skip for the end of the levels, you will be playing the same gameplay for hours and hours and hours. That gives a final score of 4.25 out of 10. On to the BS meter. For those of you who don't know, this is a score of either 0 or 1 and gets added to the final score. If a game has something outside of normal gameplay to get the platinum, it gets a 1. This game gets a 0. It's pretty straightforward, it just involves gunplay. And that gives a final ranking of 4.25 out of 10. For recommendation, I'm going to give this score a 2 out of 10. The gameplay gets pretty boring after a while, but it is a really cool game to play, mostly because it shows just how far gaming has come and gives you an appreciation for old games and for modern games. So very cool to play, but boring to platinum. Thank you everyone who tuned in to see me lose my mind. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you can follow along with the rest of the challenge and continue to see me quickly lose my sanity. We stream every game for this challenge over at Twitch, and we'll leave a link in the description below. Lastly, we have a Discord, which will also have a link in the description. Have roles for completing certain games, as well as a channel to request help with trophies, where I will either hop in the game to help you, drop items or weapons so you don't need my help, or at the very least, give tips and tricks on how I went about getting the trophy. I will see you guys in the next video where I play a PS2 classic, Psychonauts. I'm just going to leave this on until it turns itself off, I think.